have witnessed countless women become the version of themselves they swore they'd never become. The silent woman. The small woman. The woman who disappears day by day until even the mirror can no longer reflect who she truly is. But here's what's strange. The women who finally found themselves again didn't do anything to fix their marriages. Instead, they did what every self-help book says is wrong. They completely let go. And that's when the miracle happened. Not the Hollywood kind of miracle, but the kind of miracle that Buddhist nuns have known for centuries. When you stop fighting life, life stops fighting you. If you're listening to this while your heart aches with loneliness even when someone is right beside you, I have something I want to share with you. An ancient secret about loving kindness that might change everything. But first, let me tell you about a woman who woke up one morning and realized she had become a stranger to herself. The story begins like this. There was a woman who woke up one ordinary Tuesday morning and realized she no longer knew who she was. Not because of amnesia, not because of an accident or illness, but because she had disappeared day by day, decision by decision, yes by yes, until there was nothing left to lose. This happened so gradually, it was almost imperceptible. Like the way the tide rises, you don't feel it until it has already submerged everything you once knew about yourself. At first, these sacrifices seemed small. She loved forest green, but he preferred beige, so the house was painted beige. She wanted to travel through Southeast Asia, but he preferred beaches, so they went to coastal resorts. She loved deep, philosophical novels, but he said they were too depressing, so she stopped reading. With each small concession, she thought she was showing love, building a marriage, becoming a good wife. Buddhist masters have a term called tanha, craving, clinging. But few realize that we can cling to the very act of losing ourselves. We can become addicted to disappearing. Why? Because when we disappear, we feel safe. No one can reject someone who doesn't exist. No one can hurt someone who has made herself so small she's invisible. But this is the first illusion we need to recognize. Perhaps you recognize yourself in this story. Maybe you remember similar moments when you said, okay, even though your heart wanted to say no. When you smiled even though you wanted to cry. When you stayed silent even though you had so much to say. It's okay. Recognition is the first step toward liberation. The woman in our story continued living this way for years. She became a master at reading people's needs. She could sense her husband's mood the moment he walked through the door. Could adjust the atmosphere in a room with just a smile. Could transform herself into whoever he needed her to be. But one morning, Standing before a closet full of clothes she couldn't remember ever liking, she asked herself, if I can become anyone, who am I really? And that's when the first tears fell. But those tears weren't the end. They were the beginning. Because in Buddhist tradition, there's a teaching that says, suffering is not the problem. Not recognizing suffering is the real problem. And this woman was about to discover what Buddhist nuns have known for centuries about the price of perfection. The most subtle trap I have witnessed is not anger or hatred. It's perfection. The woman in our story had built an entire life around never disappointing anyone. She became an artist of anticipation, anticipating what everyone needed, what they wanted, what would make them happy. The house was always clean. Dinner was always ready. Her smile was always bright. Her words were always gentle. She became the perfect version of the wife, mother, and daughter-in-law that society expected. But perfection has a price rarely spoken about. It kills the soul. The Buddha taught about dukkha, suffering. But he didn't just speak about obvious suffering like illness or death. He spoke about the dukkha of imperfection, the suffering that comes when we try to make the imperfect perfect. When we try to become perfect people, we're fighting against the very nature of existence. We're trying to stop the natural flow of life, a flow that is sometimes smooth, sometimes turbulent, sometimes beautiful, sometimes chaotic. And that battle can never be won. The woman in our story began to feel tired. Not the kind of tired that sleep could cure, but a deep, bone-deep weariness, the exhaustion of playing someone else every day. She would wake each morning and put on the mask of perfection. Check to see who everyone needed her to be that day. The understanding wife, the patient mother, the always listening friend, the thoughtful daughter-in-law. Each performance was flawless. But behind the mask, no one remained. Do you know this feeling? The exhaustion that comes not from doing too much, but from having to be too many different people. Have you ever stood alone in the bathroom, looked in the mirror and asked, when no one is watching, who am I really? This pain is not a sign of weakness. It's the cry of a soul demanding honesty. The woman in our story began to realize that her perfection was creating a strange kind of loneliness. Everyone loved the perfect version she presented, but no one knew the real woman inside. She was praised, admired, held up as an example. But she was also completely alone. And then one night, lying next to her sleeping husband, she realized a painful truth. He loved her, but he didn't know who she was. How could he know when she had forgotten herself? That's when the first cracks appeared in the perfect mask. And as light began to shine through those cracks, she prepared to face the moment that every woman trapped in the prison of perfection fears most, the moment when the mask shatters completely. The moment of breaking always comes unexpectedly, even when we've felt the warning tremors for months. For the woman in our story, it happened on an ordinary Thursday morning in October. She was preparing breakfast, as she did every day, wearing a long-sleeved shirt to hide the bruise from bumping into the table corner the night before, a small accident because she'd been too exhausted to pay attention. Her husband walked into the kitchen, looked at breakfast, and said, "Why no scrambled eggs today?" "You know I like scrambled eggs." It wasn't malicious criticism. It wasn't intentional cruelty. Just an ordinary comment he'd made hundreds of times over the years. A comment that expressed the expectation that life would be arranged around his preferences. But this time, those words were like the final hammer blow on an already cracked wall. She stood there, holding a wooden spoon, and felt her entire world collapse. Not because of scrambled eggs, but because she realized that for years, she had become a service machine in human form. Tears began to fall. Not the quiet tears she was used to, but deep, choking sobs from the depths of her being, the sound of a soul breaking apart. "I don't know what you like anymore," she whispered. "I don't even know what I like." In Buddhist tradition, there's a concept called dukkha, jnana, wisdom born from suffering. This isn't about glorifying pain, but recognizing that sometimes we need to break completely in order to be reborn. Like a seed that must crack its shell to sprout, sometimes our souls must shatter to grow into who we really are. The breaking moment for the woman in our story wasn't failure. It was liberation. She sat down on the kitchen floor and wept, not for her husband, not for her marriage, but for herself. For the woman she had buried deep beneath layers of expectations and responsibilities. And in that moment, amid the sobbing and pain, something strange happened. She felt a small stillness arise, not the stillness of surrender, but of acceptance. Acceptance that she had lost herself. Acceptance that this life wasn't hers. And most importantly, acceptance that it was time to find her way home, back to herself. If you've ever experienced such a moment, when everything you thought you knew about yourself collapsed, know that you are not alone. And more importantly, know that the moment of breaking can be the greatest gift life gives you. Because only when we face complete emptiness can we discover what Buddhist masters call our true nature, our authentic self, uncovered by any role or expectation. The woman in our story sat on that kitchen floor for 2 hours. And when she finally stood up, she was different. Not because she had found answers, but because she was finally ready to ask the right question. That question would lead her to an ancient discovery, a practice that Buddhist nuns have used for centuries to find themselves again. A practice that begins with the simplest word, yet also the most difficult word a woman can say. The simplest word, yet also the most difficult word a woman can say is I. Not we. Not the family. Not everyone. But I, with all the weight and power it carries. The woman in our story sat on that kitchen floor, and for the first time in years, she said, I am in pain. Not, this marriage is difficult, or everything is complicated. But I am in pain. And in that moment, something miraculous happened. Buddhist masters call this sati, mindfulness. But not mindfulness as we commonly understand it, observing breath or bodily sensations. This is mindfulness of yourself as an independent entity with the right to exist. For over 500 years, Buddhist nuns have practiced a special form of meditation called metta bhavana, loving kindness cultivation. But what few people know is this practice always begins with yourself. Why? Because you cannot give what you don't have. You cannot love others authentically if you don't know how to love yourself. After her tears subsided, the woman in our story felt a strange emptiness. Not the painful kind of emptiness, but the emptiness of beginning, like a blank page waiting to be written upon. She remembered what she had read about loving kindness meditation years ago, when she was a young woman curious about Eastern philosophy. But then, she thought it was just beautiful theory, unrelated to real life. Now, sitting on that kitchen floor with swollen eyes, she understood this wasn't theory. This was survival. Perhaps you too have heard about compassion, about loving yourself. Maybe you thought these were beautiful ideas, but not practical. Especially when you're in the middle of a marriage crisis, when everything is falling apart around you. But let me tell you, this is exactly when you need it most. The practice of loving kindness begins with 3 simple words. May I be. May I be happy. May I be peaceful. May I be safe. May I live with ease. Sound simple? Try saying those words to yourself right now and see how you feel. The woman in our story tried saying these words. And the first thing she felt wasn't peace. It was fierce resistance from within. I don't deserve this. a voice in her head whispered, "I'm being too selfish," another objected. "I should think of my family first," a third voice warned. That's when she realized why this practice is so difficult. Because there's a secret about loving kindness that 99% of people don't know. A secret about the method that if you do it wrong, it's not only ineffective but can actually cause more harm. And this is exactly what this woman was about to discover. The secret doesn't lie in the words. It lies in the attitude with which you say them. Most people practice loving kindness like they're trying to convince themselves to believe something. They say, "May I be happy," with the tone of someone trying to sell a product to themselves. But that's not how Buddhist nuns practice it. They practice with the attitude of a mother looking at her crying child. Not with the desire to change the child, but with the understanding that the child is in pain and needs comfort. When you say, "May I be happy," say it as if you're speaking to a dear friend going through difficult times. Not to change them, but so they know they're not alone. Let's try this together right now. Place your hand on your heart and feel that beating. This is the heart that has loved so much, given so much, endured so much. Now, with the gentle tone as if you're speaking to a child, say, "May I be happy." Don't try to believe it. Just say it like a blessing. "May I be peaceful." Feel these words in your body. "May I be safe." Let these words soak into your soul. "May I live with ease." And rest in that gentleness. The woman in our story practiced this way for 3 days. Each morning, before putting on her mask of perfection, she spent 5 minutes offering these blessings to herself. The first day, she cried. Not from sadness, but because for the first time in years, she felt someone, even herself, truly caring for her. The second day, the resistance in her head began to weaken. The voices saying she was selfish were still there, but smaller, more distant. The third day, something miraculous happened. When her husband complained that dinner didn't include his favorite dish, instead of immediately apologizing and promising to cook it tomorrow, she paused for a second. In that second, she felt her heart, felt the exhaustion, the hurt. And instead of burying those feelings, she whispered, "May I be peaceful." Then she looked at her husband and said, "I understand you wanted that, but I cooked this with all my love. Would you like to try it?" It was the first time in years she wasn't a servant. She was a human being talking to another human being. But what was truly amazing wasn't how she had changed. It was her husband's response. Because there's a law that Buddhist masters have known for centuries. When the energy within us changes, the energy around us changes too. And this is exactly the missing piece that most people haven't discovered. The other half of this ancient formula isn't about loving others. It's about understanding that when you truly love yourself, you automatically become a source of love transmission. This isn't vague spiritual theory. This is the science of human energy. The Buddha taught about pratityasamutpada, interdependence. Everything in the universe is connected. Your mood affects the mood of those around you. How you feel about yourself communicates to how others feel about you. When the woman in our story began treating herself with compassion, she wasn't just changing her inner world. She was changing the entire energy field around her. Her husband looked at the plate of food she had cooked, then looked into her eyes. There was something different in those eyes, not the fear or desire for approval like before, but real presence. He said, and for the first time in months, he actually tasted the food instead of just judging it. This is actually really good. This wasn't charity or politeness. This was the natural response when someone feels authentic energy instead of fearful energy. The secret Buddhist nuns know is you cannot love others authentically while refusing to love yourself. Because then, your love will always be conditional. You love others to be loved back. But when you have a source of love from within, you can love without demanding anything. You love because it's your nature, not because you're lacking something. In the following days, the woman in our story began practicing what she called silent compassion. When she saw her husband tired after work, instead of immediately asking what he needed, she silently thought, "May you be peaceful." When she saw her daughter frustrated with homework, instead of immediately jumping in to solve it, she quietly thought, "May you be happy." She didn't say these things aloud, didn't do anything special. But the compassionate energy within her began to change how the entire family interacted. And that's when the real miracle began. Not the kind of miracle you see in movies, but the subtle, profound kind of miracle that only happens when love becomes a way of being instead of a way of acting. But before I share that, let's rest together for a moment. Breathe deeply with me, sister. Feel your feet touching the ground. We've just uncovered ancient secrets that Buddhist masters have preserved for over 2 millennia. Your heart is opening to wisdom that your soul has always known, but had forgotten. Loving kindness isn't just a practice, it's a transmission. When you truly embody it, you become a living blessing to everyone you meet. Perhaps right now you're feeling a small shift within. Maybe you're recognizing that what you've been seeking outside, love, acceptance, peace, has actually always been inside, waiting for you to remember. What's beautiful is that you don't need to become someone else. You can return to yourself, to the woman you've always been, underneath all the roles and expectations. You already know how to love. You already know how to be compassionate. You just forgot that it starts with you. Are you ready to discover what happens when love becomes the foundation of life instead of a goal to be achieved? The first thing that changed wasn't how people treated her. It was how she occupied space. The woman in our story began to realize that before, she entered every room like someone apologizing for her existence. Always shrinking, always small, always ready to disappear if someone needed the space. But as she began practicing compassion with herself, her presence changed. Not becoming large or imposing, but becoming real. There's fascinating research in psychology about something called emotional contagion, the spreading of emotions. Our brains have cells called mirror neurons that automatically mimic the emotional state of the person we're interacting with. When you're truly at peace with yourself, the brains of those around you will automatically reflect that peace. When you embody authentic compassion, they feel safe and loved. This isn't magic. This is the science of human energy. The first change came from her daughter. The 8-year-old, who had always been cranky and difficult after school, began running into the house to hug her mother instead of immediately complaining about homework. "Why are you so happy today?" she asked. "I don't know," her daughter replied. "You just smell nicer." Smell nicer. Not new perfume or soap, but the scent of peace. The second change came from a neighbor. A woman who rarely spoke to her began stopping to chat whenever they met at the store. "You seem different somehow," she said. "More refreshed." But the biggest change came from her husband. And this didn't happen immediately. At first, he seemed confused. The wife who had always anticipated every need now had moments of absence. Not physical absence, but absence from the energy of service. When he complained about work, instead of immediately offering advice or trying to fix his mood, she simply listened. Really listen with compassionate presence. And strangely, he felt more heard than ever before. After 3 weeks, her husband did something he hadn't done in their 12 years of marriage. He asked, "Are you okay? You seem different." Not different in a bad way, but different in a way he couldn't describe. "I'm learning to love myself," she replied simply. He was quiet for a moment, then said, "Could you teach me?" That's when she understood the true power of compassion. It doesn't just heal you. It creates safe space for others to heal themselves too. But before that could happen, she had to face her greatest enemy, an enemy we all have. The greatest enemy of the woman in our story wasn't her husband. It wasn't her circumstances. It was the voice in her head, the voice that always said she wasn't good enough. This is the battle every woman must face. The battle with the inner critic, the one who always finds fault, always compares, always demands perfection. Every morning, upon waking, that voice was ready with a list of things she'd done wrong yesterday. Why did you speak to him that way? Why didn't you cook his favorite dish? Why are you always so selfish? Before, she believed every word of that voice. Thought it was her conscience or motivation for self-improvement. But the practice of compassion had taught her to recognize the difference between wisdom and self-torture. The first time she applied compassion to her inner critic, she felt like she was betraying herself. Those criticisms helped me become better, she thought. But then she asked herself, do they really? Or do they just make me smaller? She began practicing a technique Buddhist nuns call loving kindness for the inner critic. Whenever the self-critical voice appeared, instead of fighting it or believing it, she said, I see you trying to protect me. May you be peaceful. May you let go. Something miraculous happened. The critical voice didn't disappear, but it became gentler. Instead of why do you always do things wrong, it became perhaps there's a better way to do this. Instead of you're so selfish, it became you need to care for yourself so you can care for others. Perhaps you know this voice too, the one that always finds fault, always compares you to others, always says you're not good enough. Next time you hear it, try this. Don't fight it. Don't believe it. Speak to it as if it's a frightened child. I see you. I understand you're trying to help me. But I'm safe now. You can rest. As the inner war began to calm, the woman in our story could focus on what truly mattered, rebuilding her marriage from a foundation of authentic love. And this is when the real miracle began. Six months after that breaking moment on the kitchen floor, their marriage had become something entirely different. Not because they had solved all their problems. Not because they never fought anymore. But because the way they showed up for each other had completely changed. Before, their marriage was built on a foundation of lack. She needed to be loved. He needed to be served. Two hungry people trying to give each other what neither possessed. Now, at least one of them had a source of love from within. And that changed the entire dynamic. When her husband came home in a bad mood, she no longer felt responsible for fixing his mood. She could be present with him in his pain without absorbing it. "You seem tired," she would say, not to get him to complain, but to let him know he was seen. Strangely, when she stopped trying to fix him, he began healing himself. When she stopped absorbing his negative emotions, he had to learn to process them. When she stopped anticipating his every need, he had to learn to express what he actually needed. And in that process, he began to see her as a real person instead of an extension of himself. Specific changes began to appear. He started asking what she wanted for dinner instead of just expecting. He noticed when she was tired and automatically washed dishes instead of waiting to be asked. He began telling her about his day instead of just complaining about what went wrong. And most importantly, he began to see and appreciate the real woman she was. For the first time in years, they made love not out of duty or guilt, but because they actually wanted to connect with each other. For the first time, they could sit in silence together without feeling tense. For the first time, they could disagree without anyone feeling attacked. This is the paradox Buddhist masters have known for centuries. When you stop clinging to a relationship, it can flourish. When you stop trying to control love, love can flow freely. The woman in our story had learned what no self-help book could teach. You can't love someone into loving you. But you can love yourself so much that you create space for real love to bloom. And this is exactly what she wants to share with every woman who feels lost in marriage. The path home to yourself doesn't just heal you, it heals everything around you. The real test of any spiritual practice isn't how it feels in meditation. It's how it transforms the ordinary moments of daily life. The woman in our story discovered this truth on a Tuesday morning, 3 months into her loving kindness practice. She was doing dishes, the same task she'd done thousands of times before, but something was different. Instead of rushing through the chore while mentally planning the next task, she found herself fully present. Feeling the warm water, appreciating the simple act of caring for her home. And spontaneously she whispered, "May this home be filled with peace." That's when she realized loving kindness wasn't something she did for 5 minutes each morning. It was becoming how she lived. Buddhist masters speak of samasati, right mindfulness. But this isn't just sitting meditation. It's bringing sacred awareness to every moment of ordinary life. When you wash dishes with loving kindness, you're not just cleaning plates. You're practicing compassion. When you prepare food with loving intention, you're not just cooking. You're offering nourishment to souls. When you fold laundry with presence, you're not just organizing clothes. You're caring for the bodies of people you love. The woman developed what she called her morning sacred ritual. Before anyone else woke up, she would spend 10 minutes not just practicing loving kindness, but setting the energetic tone for her entire day. She would sit quietly and offer blessings. May I meet this day with peace. May I respond with compassion. May I remember who I truly am beneath all the roles I play. Then she would extend these blessings to her family. May my husband feel seen and valued today. May my daughter experience joy in learning. May our home be a sanctuary of love. Perhaps you're thinking, this sounds beautiful, but I barely have time to brush my teeth in the morning, let alone meditate. But here's what the woman discovered. Loving kindness doesn't require extra time. It requires extra presence. You can practice loving kindness while brushing your teeth. May I care for this body that serves me so faithfully. While driving to work, may all beings on this road arrive safely. While waiting in line at the store, may the person in front of me have ease in their day. The most powerful practice became what she called micro moments of metta. Brief instants throughout the day when she would pause and offer silent blessings. When her husband looked stressed, may you find peace. When her daughter struggled with homework, may you have patience with yourself. When she felt overwhelmed, may I be gentle with myself in this moment. These weren't grand gestures. They were tiny seeds of compassion planted throughout her day. And like all seeds, they began to grow. Grocery shopping became an opportunity to practice gratitude. Thank you to all the hands that grew this food. Commuting became time for loving kindness, meditation instead of road rage. Even cleaning the bathroom became a moment of caring for the space where her family found privacy and renewal. She wasn't trying to make ordinary tasks spiritual. She was recognizing that they already were. Each evening, she developed a simple reflection practice. Before sleep, she would ask herself 3 questions. Where did I offer love today? Where did I withhold love from myself or others? What blessing do I need to receive tonight? This wasn't harsh self-judgment. It was gentle accountability, the kind a loving friend might offer. As her daily practice deepened, the entire rhythm of family life began to shift. Mornings became calmer because she approached them with intention instead of reactive urgency. Evenings became more connected because she was present instead of mentally planning tomorrow. Even mundane tasks like setting the table became opportunities for creating beauty and showing care. But the most surprising discovery was yet to come. Because when you consistently live from a place of loving kindness, something unexpected happens. Other people begin to feel it, and they start asking questions. Questions that would lead this woman to discover that her personal transformation was just the beginning of something much larger. Six months into her practice, something extraordinary began happening. Women started approaching her. Not because she was preaching or teaching. She hadn't changed her outward behavior dramatically. But there was something in her presence, a quality of peace and groundedness, that drew people like thirsty travelers to a well. It started with her neighbor, Sarah, a single mother of two who always looked exhausted. One afternoon, Sarah stopped her in the driveway. "I don't know how to say this without sounding strange," Sarah began, "but whenever I talk to you, I feel calmer. What's your secret?" The woman in our story paused. She had never thought of loving kindness as a secret to be shared. But looking into Sarah's tired eyes, she felt a familiar compassion arise. "Would you like to come in for tea?" she offered. That afternoon, sitting in her kitchen, she shared her story for the first time. Not as a teacher or guru, but as one woman speaking honestly to another about the path back to herself. Sarah listened with tears in her eyes. "I don't even remember who I was before I became a mother," she whispered. "I love my children, but I feel like I disappeared." "I know," was all she said. "I know." The Buddha spoke of three jewels: Buddha, awakened nature; Dharma, teachings; and Sangha, community. He understood that transformation happens not in isolation, but in connection with others walking the same path. When women gather to support each other's spiritual growth, something sacred occurs. The individual journey becomes a collective awakening. Word spread quietly. Not through social media posts or formal announcements, but through the ancient network that has always connected women: honest conversation. Soon, 3 women were meeting weekly in her living room. Then 5. Then 8. They called themselves simply the Circle, women learning to come home to themselves through the practice of loving kindness. These weren't typical book clubs or therapy groups. They were gatherings where women could speak the truth about their inner lives without judgment. One woman shared her struggle with perfectionism. Another talked about losing herself in caregiving for elderly parents. A third spoke about the loneliness of being married but feeling unseen. Each story was met not with advice or attempts to fix, but with loving presence. With the recognition that spoke, "I see you. Your experience matters. You are not alone." As these women began practicing loving kindness in their own lives, the ripple effects multiplied. Husbands noticed their wives seemed more peaceful. Children felt the shift in family energy. Workplace dynamics changed as these women brought more presence and less reactivity to their professional lives. One of the most powerful discoveries was learning to extend loving kindness to difficult people. Not to enable harmful behavior, but to protect their own hearts from bitterness. Margaret, whose mother-in-law was chronically critical, learned to silently offer blessings. "May you find peace. May your own pain be healed." This didn't change her mother-in-law, but it freed Margaret from carrying resentment. Linda, dealing with a toxic boss, practiced loving kindness as a form of emotional protection. "May you be free from the suffering that causes you to hurt others." This kept her centered and professional instead of reactive and defensive. Perhaps most remarkably, the children in these families began to change. When mothers practice self-compassion, children learn that they too deserve kindness. When homes are filled with loving intention instead of stressed rushing, children naturally become more cooperative and peaceful. The woman's own daughter, now 9, had begun spontaneously saying things like, "I hope everyone at school has a good day today." She was learning to be a blessing in the world simply by witnessing her mother's practice. Many women in the circle realized they were breaking cycles that had persisted for generations. The harsh self-criticism they had inherited from their mothers and grandmothers was being transformed into loving kindness, a gift they could pass to their own daughters. "My mother never learned to be gentle with herself," one woman reflected. "But maybe that pattern ends with me." As the circle continued to grow, the woman began to understand something profound about the nature of love and healing. Individual transformation, when rooted in ancient wisdom and supported by community, has the power to heal not just personal wounds, but generational ones. But the greatest surprise was still coming, a moment that would show her the true scope of what they had all started. One year after that breaking moment on the kitchen floor, the woman received a phone call that would change everything. It was from a woman named Jessica, who lived 3 states away. "I know this sounds crazy," Jessica said, "but I heard about your circle from a friend of a friend. I'm desperate. I've lost myself completely in my marriage, and I don't know how to find my way back." That's when she realized this wasn't just about her anymore. This wasn't even just about the circle. Something much larger was happening. Women from the circle had been sharing the practice with their sisters, their friends, their colleagues. Sarah had started her own small group for single mothers. Margaret was teaching loving kindness to women in her church. Linda had introduced mindful compassion practices at her workplace. What had begun as one woman's personal crisis had become a quiet revolution of women remembering who they truly were. But perhaps the most profound change had occurred at home. Her husband, who had initially been skeptical about her Buddhist phase, had gradually undergone his own transformation. He had started asking deeper questions. What would make you truly happy? How can I support you better? What do you need from me that you're not getting? These weren't questions the old version of him would have thought to ask. But when someone consistently shows up with authentic presence instead of fearful performance, it creates space for others to become more authentic too. 6 months earlier, they had had a conversation that marked a true new beginning. They were walking together after dinner, something they had started doing as part of her practice of bringing more intention to their time together. "I need to tell you something," he said suddenly. "I didn't really know you before." She looked at him, surprised. "I thought I did. We'd been married 12 years. But I was in love with a version of you. The version that never disagreed, never had needs, never took up space. I didn't know the real you because you weren't showing me." He paused, struggling with the words. "And I think I didn't want to know. Because the real you might have needed things I wasn't sure I could give." She felt her heart open in a way it never had before. Not with the desperate gratitude of someone finally being seen, but with the quiet recognition of 2 people meeting for the first time. "Who do you see now?" she asked gently. "I see someone strong. Someone who has opinions and needs and dreams. Someone who loves deeply but doesn't disappear into that love. Someone I want to actually know, not just live with." That night, they made love not as strangers performing familiar roles, but as 2 people choosing each other with full awareness of who they both truly were. Their marriage now looked nothing like what they had before. There was more conflict, actually, because she no longer automatically agreed with everything he said. But there was also more intimacy, because the conflict was real instead of hidden. There was more space, time apart, individual interests, separate friendships. But there was also more connection, because they came together as whole people, instead of as two halves trying to complete each other. There was more authenticity, difficult conversations, honest feedback, shared vulnerability. But there was also more joy, because they were loving the truth of each other instead of the illusion. One evening, as she was preparing dinner, her husband walked into the kitchen and did something he had never done in their 13 years of marriage. He asked, "What can I do to help?" Not because dinner was late. Not because he was hungry. But because he saw her as a partner whose experience mattered. She looked at him and felt the profound completion of a circle that had begun with her own broken heart on this same kitchen floor. "Just be present with me," she said. "That's all I've ever wanted." And as they cooked together in comfortable silence, she understood that this moment, this simple, ordinary moment of two people choosing love over fear, presence over performance, was available to anyone willing to make the same journey she had made. The journey back home to themselves. If you've listened this far, it's not by accident. Something in this story has resonated with the deepest part of your being, the part that remembers who you truly are beneath all the roles you play, all the expectations you carry, all the ways you've learned to make yourself small. You are not broken. You are not too much or too little. You are not failing at being a woman, a wife, a mother, a human being. You are simply remembering. Right now, in this moment, you have a choice. You can close this video and return to the familiar patterns, the self-criticism, the people-pleasing, the slow disappearance into everyone else's needs. Or you can begin. Not tomorrow. Not when life gets easier. Not when you have more time or energy or support. Right now. Beginning doesn't require a meditation cushion or a Buddhist temple or perfect circumstances. It requires only this, placing your hand on your heart and speaking to yourself as you would to someone you love. Try it now. Feel that steady beating, the heart that has carried you through every joy and sorrow, every triumph and failure, every moment of your beautiful, complex life. And say these words, not as a spiritual performance, but as a simple truth. May I be happy. May I be peaceful. May I be safe. May I live with ease. You have permission to start imperfectly. To practice for 2 minutes instead of 20. To feel resistance and practice anyway. To doubt and still begin. You have permission to love yourself, even if no one taught you how. To take up space even if you were taught to be small. To have needs even if you were raised to only give. You have permission to disappoint others in service of finding yourself. To set boundaries in service of authentic love. To choose your own peace over everyone else's comfort. The practice of loving kindness that saved the woman in our story isn't new. It isn't trendy. It isn't a quick fix or a life hack. It's a 500-year-old path back to your true nature. A way of being that countless women before you have walked when they felt lost, invisible, forgotten. The wisdom is already inside you. The capacity for love, starting with love for yourself, is already there. You're not learning something foreign. You're remembering something ancient. I can't promise that your marriage will transform like hers did. Love cannot be controlled or manipulated, only offered. But I can promise this: when you learn to love yourself with the same tenderness you show others, everything changes. Not because you become perfect, but because you become real. You might discover that your relationships deepen because you're no longer relating from need but from fullness. You might find that your children learn self-compassion by witnessing yours. You might realize that your work becomes service instead of performance, because you're no longer trying to prove your worth. And you are not alone in this journey. Somewhere, there are other women who have heard this same call, who have felt this same recognition, who are ready to remember together. Whether you find them in a formal group or in spontaneous conversations, whether you connect online or in living rooms, trust that when you begin to live authentically, you attract others who are walking the same path. Tonight, before you sleep, try this simple practice. Place both hands on your heart and offer yourself the blessing that every soul needs to hear. I see you. I honor your journey. I appreciate how hard you've been trying. You deserve love, especially your own. Rest well, dear one. Tomorrow, we begin again. The path home to yourself doesn't require dramatic life changes. It doesn't require leaving anyone or anything. It requires bringing sacred awareness to the life you already have. Every moment becomes an opportunity to choose love over fear. Every interaction becomes a chance to practice compassion. Every day becomes a sacred journey of remembering who you truly are. The woman in our story is still practicing, still learning, still growing. because the journey back to yourself isn't a destination, it's a way of traveling through life. And now, dear sister, it's your turn to begin. As our journey together draws to a close, I want you to place your hand on your heart one more time. Feel that steady rhythm, the same rhythm that has carried you through every joy, every sorrow, every moment of your beautiful, complex life. You are not the same woman who began listening to this story. Something has shifted. Something has awakened. The ancient wisdom we've explored together isn't something you need to achieve, it's something you need to remember. You already know how to love. You already know how to be compassionate. You just forgot that it starts with you. Take with you this sacred knowing. Every moment is a new opportunity to choose love over fear, presence over performance, truth over perfection. The ancient wisdom lives in you now. Trust it. Follow it. Let it guide you home to yourself. If this ancient practice is calling to your heart, don't let this be where our journey ends. Subscribe to Where Hearts Rest and join thousands of women who are quietly revolutionizing their lives through loving kindness. This isn't just a channel, it's a sanctuary for souls. In the comments below, complete this sentence. The moment I recognized myself in this story was when. Your courage to share might be the lifeline another invisible woman needs to remember that she exists, that she matters, that she is deeply loved. Ring that notification bell, not for more content, but for connection. Each week, we gather in this sacred space to explore how ancient wisdom meets modern women's lives. Because transformation happens in community, and every heart deserves a place to rest. And here's what I want you to do right now. Before you close this app, before you return to folding that laundry or making that dinner, choose one person you'll extend loving kindness to today. Just one. Start there. Start small. Start sacred. Your journey back to yourself begins with a single breath, a single blessing, a single moment of choosing love. Before you go, receive this blessing that Buddhist teachers have offered for centuries, now offered from my heart to yours. May you be happy. May you be healthy. May you be safe. May you live with ease. May the love you cultivate for yourself overflow into every corner of your life. May you remember that you are not too much and you are not too little. You are exactly who you need to be. May your presence become a blessing to everyone you meet. And may you always know that in this chaotic, beautiful world, there is a place where your heart can rest. Until we meet again in this sacred space, Go gently, dear sister. Go with love. Go with the ancient wisdom that now lives within you. This is where hearts rest. Thank you for allowing me to walk beside you today.